Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, I had a plan for what I was going to do for a vlog today, but once again fate stepped in and steered me in a different direction. Turns out last night I was going out for one of my evening strolls, and as I was walking in front of my house, I noticed kind of something in the shadows. I couldn't see clearly. It's really dark around the house at night. There's no street lights on my block, and none of the neighbors that have overly bright lighting in front of their house. So I could kind of see in the shadows there was something in my front yard, but I couldn't quite make out what it was. I took out my cell phone, turned on the flashlight, and it turns out that a pretty massive branch came out of one of my pecan trees and was laying on the lawn. Now, that's not terribly uncommon. One of the things I've learned in the couple years I've been here is that the pecan trees, the wood in the pecan trees is kind of brittle. And so it's not uncommon for branches to come down. Usually they're not very big, but usually also it's accompanied by like a windstorm or something like that. That wasn't the case. It was actually windy a few days ago, but this just happened yesterday sometime, and this was a huge, massive branch, and there wasn't really a lot of wind to bring anything down. So I'm not sure exactly when it happened or why it happened, but I've got about a 30-foot long, 6-inch diameter branch sitting in my front yard that I need to deal with today. So you may recall a couple years ago, I had a tree in the front yard that I had to bring down because it had died as a result of a really intense winter storm that we had the previous winter, and a windstorm had brought about half of it down, so I decided to bring the rest of it down, and I went out and bought a chainsaw. So you know, we got something to chop this thing up. When I got home last night, I looked at it closer to see what we were dealing with, and got the batteries on the chainsaw on the charger, so we're ready to go. And I guess I've talked enough about this. Let's go look at it. Yeah, so this is what I saw last night. Yeah, this is a big, massive branch. Like I said, it's for 30, maybe I'm looking at it now, maybe 40 feet long. And it came out of one of the pecan trees. And as a matter of fact, I was kind of looking up to try and figure out where it had come from. And it's clear it came from right there. So, yeah, it obviously just snapped, fell down, and ended up on the ground over here. So I'm going to chop this thing up. One of the good things about this, if you can ever find a good thing about a big massive branch like this coming out of a tree, is that last winter I used up all the firewood from the previous tree that came down that I had to bring down. So I need some more firewood anyway, and this is going to be it. And so it's been really oppressively hot lately. Even early in the morning, it's still in the 90s. We're in the low 80s right now. It's going to get a little warmer today, but we finally had a little break in the heat, and we're actually maybe expecting a little rain in a couple days, hopefully. Well, whatever the case is, it's a little bit more pleasant, and look who's out and about. So I think the first thing I want to do is cut off some of these little branches here, because we're going to throw a lot of that away. And I got the perfect tool for that. This is actually something I inherited from my father. I remember him seeing this at some sort of a home and garden show, and this is sort of a ratcheting, pruning tool here, which, you know, allows you to actually chop some pretty good sized branches. So this will be a perfect job for this thing. We're going to chop off a lot of the small chunks, and then we can start working on the big thing. So I got most of the small branches off now, and basically it's just down to the lumber at this point. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to bring the chainsaw out here. Going to chop this up into kind of, you know, bite-sized chunks. We're going to drag this in the backyard, and then we'll sit and chop it up into bits and pieces back there. Because what'll happen is if I do it here, then all the chips from the chainsaw will end up on the grass. And if I do it in the backyard on the patio there, then they'll all end up on the concrete. I can sweep them up, and they make good filler. So a good mulch for the yard. So like I said, I'm going to chop this up into probably 6 or 10 foot chunks, drag it into the backyard, and we'll do the rest of the work back there. All right, this is coming together actually pretty easily. This wood is relatively soft, so the chainsaw is making kind of quick work of it. One of the problems you sometimes run into with electric chainsaws versus gas-powered chainsaws is they sometimes lack the power. And like I said, I'm making it through these branches really easy. I'm going to transport these into the backyard. These are going to turn into firewood for this winter. And I'm going to kind of take the rest of this, chop it up into little chunks here, try and get the pecans off of them, because there's a whole bunch of pecans on these branches here, and we'll put those aside for the squirrels. The squirrels always love the pecans. All right, a couple hours have passed. I got 2 full trash cans full of leaf waste, a third of a bucket full of pecans for the squirrels, and I've moved all the lumber to the backyard. What I'm going to do now is take it one by one and chop them into about 12 to 14 inch slices so that we're ready for the fireplace come this winter. I think this will be good for helping to keep the house warm this winter, and that's a good thing because I used up the rest of my tree waste last year for last winter, so I'm ready for a little bit more. So I'm going to hit this with a chainsaw, and I think we'll be pretty close to wrapping this video up. Alright, I just made the first cut, and I think it's safe to say the colony of fire ants that were living in this log are not happy with what I just did. Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. I think when I initially identified these, I thought they were fire ants because they're red color. But I now think, looking at the damage to the wood they've caused, I think maybe they're carpenter ants. And that may actually explain why the tree branch collapsed. If you get a carpenter ant infestation in the branch and they're eating away at the wood like they certainly appear to be doing here, that may have ultimately weakened the tree and resulted in its collapse. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this. So I got all my lumber chopped up, and we're now ready to let it dry for a few months, and hopefully we'll be ready for the winter. I don't think this will keep me going all winter, but this should get me going through a lot of it, a lot of cold winter nights, because they say often in Texas, when you have a real extreme summer like we did, it results in a very extreme winter also. So I don't know, that's the beauty of this place, is the extremes. But we got the job all done, and I think we're ready to finish off this project. I do got one little extra piece of business to cover, and we'll do that now. So I wanted to take a minute to reach out and thank one of my viewers. Angela Zahn sent me something from my Amazon wish list. One of the things, if you've been watching, you know I have an Amazon wish list, and I've been kind of collecting stuff for the model railroad, and I've gotten some kind of cool buildings, and one of the things I had on my list were some little teeny tiny miniature park benches, and Angela graciously sent those to me, and I wanted to take a moment to thank her. Additionally, I had somebody send me a whole bunch of tiny little miniature people here, and I don't know who it was that sent these to me, so I don't know who to thank. It's very possible the person just wanted to be anonymous, and if that's the case, I will thank them. But if they sent something and just accidentally forgot to identify themselves, I would like to know who they are. Now it's kind of cool. There's a bunch of little people, standing up and sitting down, and of course I got the people that will sit in the park benches here. Let me see. I'm trying to do this with one hand, but yeah, you can get the little people sitting in the park benches, and like I said, people doing all sorts of other little things here that are ready for the village when that time comes. So I wanted to thank both Angela and Anonymous, if that's the case, for contributing to the channel. Thank you very much. So I think that pretty much wraps things up for today. Make sure you come back next time, because we're going to go someplace and do something really fun. But until then, thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.